Welcome, everybody. Welcome to this edition of Ramblings of an Old Fart podcast. Hello, my name's Craig Warren. I'm 71 years old, been married almost 53 years, father of 9 and grandpa to a bunch. I'm sort of retired. I retired at 65 to provide some full-time care for my wife, who's had some pretty serious health issues. But lately I realized that I need something to do to keep my mind active. So why not a podcast? I have a lot of experience. I've done a lot of things in my 50-plus years in the workforce. I definitely have a lot of opinions, so what more would I need? I should mention that I have never been a member of a political party, and I do not intend to do so. My podcasts do not come from a political place, just from a factual and common sense place. We talked a little bit in the previous podcast on the energy hostage crisis part 1, right? We looked at the ships, we looked at the missiles, the Strait of Hormuz, we talked about our refineries. But today we're looking at the ledger, because while the physical blockade is 7,000 miles away, the financial blockade is happening right at your local gas station. Today we follow the money, those who give it and those who receive it. So this is Energy Hostage Crisis Part 2, Follow the Money. So today, with all of this going on, people are looking to the president for answers. But the real power is in the Rayburn House office building. It's in the hands of people like Chairman Brett Guthrie and senior members like Bob Latta. They use their seats on the Energy and Commerce Committee to act as a human shield for the oil companies. When a bill comes up to tax those record profits and to give, so that we get some of the money back to the people here, it doesn't get voted down on the floor of the House. It gets smothered in a committee somewhere in a back room by the very same people who receive campaign donations by the big oil companies. So Guthrie and Latta, they're currently pushing for energy dominance legislation. In early 2026, it prioritizes exports. So they want to continue sending our oil overseas and trapping us into this never-ending loop of getting oil from the Middle East. And then we have other people like Pallone and Vasey provide the bipartisan cover that makes it hard for the public to see this as a one-party issue. Okay, so let's look at where the money comes from a little bit. These are just some of the sources, but these are some of the key players. There's a Kelsey Warren from Energy Transfer. Push for the end of the LNG export pause, the liquid natural gas. A major backer of the current administration's energy platform. We have Harold Hamm from Continental Resources. He's considered the godfather of fracking, and he helped shape the drill at all costs policy. We have Jeffrey Hildebrand from Hillcorp, a massive donor to the super PACs focused on deregulation for the oil companies. Okay, so let's look a little bit more into these gatekeepers, if you will, the political gatekeepers, the recipients of a lot of this PAC money. The House Energy and Commerce Committee we just talked about, whose members have received almost $200,000 in PAC money just to stall this big windfall profits tax act that's being debated in Congress. This isn't just a federal issue, and so I want to touch on that a little bit as well. And we have the moderate Democrats in California, the business-friendly Democratic caucus in Sacramento that blocks price gouging and transparency bills that come up. In New Mexico, the New Mexico leadership, the Speaker, Javier Martinez, and Finance Chair George Munoz, they've received more from big oil in 2024 than many of the Republican counterparts did. And some of the legislative targets, but just a few of them that they've been working on. The One Big Beautiful Bill was one of them. The 2025 legislation that secured $18 billion in industry incentives. They're making record profits, but they still want incentives from the government. And then we had the Windfall Profits Tax Act, which there's currently being held hostage by the very people listed above. See, they want to take it like right now. You look at what's going on in the Middle East. The price of oil have gone up. Even though they're selling our oil, which we talked in part one, sending to Europe, making huge profits because of the war and but they don't want to have to pay any extra tax or anything back to the American people. Okay, so let's take a look at this. I want to start with the Republican here, and I call them the gavel holders. These are the leadership in Congress that's behind a lot of this and taking this PAC money. These are the members who set the agenda. In early 2026, they are the ones blocking the windfall tax discussions and pushing for more exports, which keeps your local prices tied to the global market. Yes, Brett Guthrie, we already talked about. It's a Republican from Kentucky. He's the chairman of the full committee. As the chair, Guthrie is the ultimate gatekeeper. He has been a massive recipient of oil and gas PAC money. In March 2026, he famously praised the big beautiful bill, which secured billions in new incentives for fossil fuel. Companies, well, they're already hitting high profit. We already talked about the big profits. And Bob Latta, Republican from Ohio, chairman of the Energy Subcommittee. He literally controls the energy faucet in the House. Latta has consistently voted to protect the industry from price gouging investigations. His subcommittee is currently the graveyard for any number of bills that would keep American-made oil here for American consumers. We have August Pfluger, Republican from Texas. He's one of the top recipients of oil and gas cash in Congress, too. In early 2026, he has been a vocal leader in pushing to refill the strategic petroleum reserves, not to lower our prices, but to create a guaranteed government buyer for the oil company's product. We have Randy Weber, Republican from Texas, vice chair of the Energy Subcommittee. His district is one of the big hubs for refineries and the LNG exports. His priority is moving oil out of the country to the highest bidder, which keeps your local prices high, keeps us tied into the Middle East. Okay, so to be nonpartisan, I got to cover the Democrats involved here too, right? The oil and gas companies, they don't care which side of the fence. They play both sides. So, we have people taking money on both sides of the fence here. We have a Lizzie Fletcher, Democrat from Texas, vice-ranking member. As a Democrat from Houston, the world's oil capital, she is in a unique position. She often acts as the industry's Democrat, breaking with her party to support fossil fuel interests and helping to stall aggressive regulations from within the minority. And then we have this Mark Vasey, Democrat from Texas, another Democrat on the committee who consistently accepts large donations from companies like Exxon, Mobil, and Chevron. He provides the bipartisan cover that allows the committee to claim their pro-export policies have support from both sides. I kind of look, for some reason when I was reading this, there was an analogy that came to me like the designated hitter or something in baseball. Because that's where these people are there. They know they can always count on them to put in that cross that aisle, if you will, or at least make it look like we're getting Democrats, crossing the aisle and siding with the Republicans. It sounds like it's kind of they've already got this play called ahead of time, if you will. All right, then we also have this Mark Cuellar, Democrat from Texas. Though often in the news for other reasons, he's been a long-time oil and gas Democrat who has historically voted with Republicans to protect the industry's subsidies and block windfall taxes. Then we have another group that you don't always hear about them, but they're considered the no vote in the committee. And they're the ones that help squash things that they don't want to come out. And we have a Jeff Duncan from a Republican, South Carolina, a former subcommittee chairman. He remains kind of a powerhouse in that group. He's the primary architect of the energy expansion narrative that focuses on exporting American energy dominance rather than domestic price stability. We have a Dan Crenshaw, Republican from Texas, a high-profile member of the committee. He uses his massive media platform to frame any attempt to regulate oil prices as socialism, effectively acting as a public relations shield for the $450 million in lobbying money that we are discussing. You notice how these people, and it doesn't matter which side of the fence you're on, if you get somebody that's speaking out that you don't want to hear the people to hear their point, you always just try and call them, refer to them as socialists or racists or some other thing to shift the focus away from what you're trying to hide. Does that make sense? I just want to reiterate here. We have the oil. We have the refineries, right? We would have to retool them slightly, but it's nothing. It's peanuts compared to what these big oil companies make. The reason that we can't get all that done, though, is because the people we sent to Washington on both sides of the aisle have been paid, like, over the last short period of time, $450 million to make sure we stay tethered to a global market that we can't control. They call it energy dominance. I call it a twofold income stream for the big oil companies. And it's a math problem for us. We're trying to figure out how the heck to fill up our car with gas, right? You know me, I don't have a political party here. So this isn't a political or partisan thing. But I think it's time that we start looking at the numbers. Okay, to give you the black and white, or the answer for this podcast, the spending. The spending at the state level is often more significant than the federal spending because states are where the actual drilling permits, refining regulations, and local tax breaks are decided. While California is the most transparent. They come right out. They're spending $34 to $39 million in 2025 alone. The estimated total for the whole industry across all 50 states is between $120 and $150 million annually. This includes direct campaign contributions to governors, state legislators, and attorneys general, as well as high-powered lobbying groups in the state capitals. And so we have a multiplier effect here. The oil companies, for every dollar they spend in Washington, they're also spending at least 50 to 75 cents in the states as well. So the deal is that even if federal laws get changed, the local boots on the ground rules, basically the state rules, could still be shifted in their favor. So let's look at, just to give you an idea, there's three of the biggest states that are getting the most money. Texas, of course, that makes sense. $25 to $30 million per year. California, we already talked, $34 to $39 million. New Mexico, that's becoming another big player because they're doing a lot more drilling and fracking in New Mexico. $10 to $12 million. As we discussed, they spend heavily on Democrats here in New Mexico because they're the ones that hold the seats of power right now. They've successfully lobbied to keep methane waste rules from being too costly for the oil companies. Right? So they don't care if it's Republican or Democrat. They don't really care. They just want to make sure they get what they want. One of the things that really frustrated me about this is what I just mentioned. The attorneys general. When you think about that, why would they be even allowed to take money from somebody? Like, I mean, doesn't that automatically put them in a position where they'd have to recuse themselves from any kind of a lawsuit? Conflict of interest is what it would seem to me. But here's the thing. This is what's going on. This is the naming gold mine, if you will. The industry funnels millions into Republican Attorney General Association, the RAGA, and its Democratic counterpart. They want the AGs to sue the federal government to block environmental rules or other things that they don't like. So let's look at some names here. In states like Utah, Louisiana, and West Virginia, they're often the ones filing the lawsuits that keep the twofold income stream protected from the federal oversight. I was surprised to read this when I seen that Utah was involved. That's my home state. I'm going to have to do some research on that and find out exactly how our state attorney generals are, what they're doing, what some of the things that I might not care for too much. Okay, so you might think your state capital is a safe distance from the $450 million circus in D.C., but it is not. It's often cheaper and more effective for big oil to buy a state senator than a U.S. senator from Sacramento or Austin or Santa Fe. The industry is dropping over $120 million to make sure that no matter what happens in Washington, the rules in your backyard stay written in their favor. They aren't just lobbying for energy. They're lobbying to make sure you have no choice but to pay their price. So when you combine that with the record-breaking state-level collections, I want to talk about the money as far as, I mean, that was part of my podcast number one. It's they're getting our oil and we're getting almost nothing for it, right? So let's look at the total amount of energy revenue generated here on some of the royalties. In fiscal year 2025, the total amount of energy revenue generated from federal and tribal lands and offshore was $14.61 billion. When you combine that with the record-breaking state-level collections like $27.3 billion in Texas, it sounds like a lot of money. The total amount of money moving from these companies to the public coffers, it sounds really good. But when you consider some of the other stuff, we'll take a look and compare it. It's not much in comparison. Okay, so we talked about the Department of Interior said that they dispersed $14.61 million. $5 million went to the U.S. Treasury. $4 billion went to the individual states. $1 billion went to the Native American tribes, stuff like that. Okay, so like we said, Texas was the big powerhouse at $27.3 billion. While $27 billion sounds like a lot, remember that the Texas oil and gas industry's direct gross regional product exceeded $366 billion in that same time period. They are effectively paying 7.5%. That's pretty cheap. If you can buy a product for 7.5% of what you can sell it for, that's a pretty dang good deal, right? Okay, so in less than 1 month, okay, let me give you an estimate. I think we talked about this in part one, but it's estimated that if this Iran thing ends in even close to the time frame that President Trump's talking about, the big oil companies stand to make an additional profit over and above what they would normally have made by somewhere in the $60 billion range. So think about that. In just 4 weeks of a crisis 7,000 miles away, these companies make enough extra profit from the war premium to pay their rent to the American people for the rest of the year. Every dollar they make after, say, day 28 is pure gravy, paid for by you at the pump, while they lobby the House Energy and Commerce Committee to keep the royalty rates at a discounted price of 12.5%. I should mention to you here, for context, most royalties on state lands are 20 to 25%. The federal rate was 16.67% until oil company lobbyists spent a lot of money to get it reduced in the one big beautiful bill down to 12.5%. But as you can see in Texas, it doesn't always end up that way. There's a lot of funny business going on there. Because in Texas, I think their rate is between 20 and 25%, but you can see their actual, by the time they get all of the, the little special deductions, the side deals, whatever, they end up paying an effective rate of 7.5%. I had a brainstorm a little bit earlier when I was doing the research on this. This is going to sound real crazy, I'm sure. But why shouldn't we take our oil back and create a public utility? The oil companies could still drill and pump and refine if they want to, but the rate would have to be approved by the Public Utilities Commission. If they exported any excess, then they would rebate part of the profits back to the people or the states. We could do that through an export tax. I know that sounds crazy, but when you think about it, I know here in Utah, all of our utilities are public utilities. They're privately ran, but they can't raise prices without going through a commission to get approval, and they have to show that there's a legitimate reason for it. I don't know, just a thought. I've been in favor of President Trump's drill baby drill mentality, but it has to be coupled with a refine baby refine mandate. We pump our oil here, refine our oil here, and we use the oil here first, right? I still maintain, like I did in the podcast one, our resources, our natural resources should be used to benefit the American people first. And if we have extra, I'm fine with sharing it with the rest of the world. But that's my thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this. I thank you for joining me today. I hope you found it entertaining or educational or thought-provoking. Join me next time, won't you? I'm Craig Warren, and this has been the Ramblings of an Old Fart podcast. God bless you and keep you till next time.